For that, we got it out. Do you want me?
Speakers, we're excited to hear you say the pledge as you stand by the flag. And so just so you know how this is going to work, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, and you'll get a chance to introduce yourself and share your name and what school you go to. You might want to introduce who your parents are, and then you'll go right on into the pledge after that. So that's how we'll start. They're going to start right at 6:30. So you have still another 2 minutes before we get started. And then for the rest of our young people that are on, somewhere around 6:45, then you'll have an opportunity, and we'll do that at the beginning, right after we have highlights. Alyssa and other people that are on will be just asking you how your experience has been at school so far when it's time for that. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back on mute, and it's now 6:29 or 6:28. And so this is being recorded live on Facebook. So if you have Facebook friends that you want them to see you giving the pledge and speaking, feel free to tell them that you were on TV. And again, we have now 1 minute left before we start. Thank you for being here.
We'll call this meeting back to order. And our next item is our Pledge of Allegiance. So are we going to, somebody can introduce our students?
We do have two students, and you can see the Rossum sign on one of their shirts. And so our Principal Schrader is here, and we're going to turn it over to our student to introduce themselves and who's with them, and then we'll turn it over to them to start the pledge.
My name is Berlin, and I'm going.
Oh, the audio went out slightly. So can you say that one more time? And then Mom, you can share who you are and how you're affiliated with the school.
My name is Berlin, and I'm going to do the pledge.
Perfect. All right, and we're going to start the pledge.
Yes. With your right hand on your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That was the best pledge speaker I've heard ever. So Mr. Mack, we have a certificate for you. We're going to be sending it to you as well. And we know we have Principal Schrader on. Principal Schrader, do you want to share how this family is connected with Ross?
Absolutely. Draylon is one of our 5th grade scholars, and his mom, Lindsay Giger, is one of our special education paraprofessionals.
They have awesome staff and brilliant students. So thank you for being here. And again, congratulations on being selected by your principal for the pledge this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Draylon. Have a good evening. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move the board approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. We have a motion. Do we have a second to adopt the agenda? Mr. Munoz offers a second. Is there any discussion on the agenda? I don't see any, so Mrs. Lister, we're ready to vote. Thank you. Next is school highlights. Dr. Anderson, we're going to recognize some custodians that have been working hard this past several months. So.
Absolutely. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Robbins on the school highlights to share a little bit about this Appreciation Month, and then we'll go straight into that recognition.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. For the purpose of the board, I'd like to remind everyone that if we go back a few days to October the 2nd, it was National Custodian Day. But when you think about the situation that exists in this community and across the country right now with the pandemic, you can really say that when it comes to public education, that there's no reason why it shouldn't be National Custodian Year, because the pandemic has certainly presented tremendous challenges to us in particular. And custodians have been on the front line, really defending students and staff, you know, from the pandemic and its effects. Our custodians, all 92 of them, and the one custodial supervisor that we have been working tirelessly for months in preparing for return to school so that students and staff can operate safely. They were working when many of the buildings or all of our buildings were empty. We had custodians on duty, cleaning, disinfecting, sanitizing, rearranging furniture so we could social distance students within classrooms. So we really owe them a debt of gratitude. We have some tremendous people that fill the role of custodian in our district, and many of them are highlighted. I think you're going to see a video clip of one and hear some of the comments that that custodian's principal has to say about him and what he means to their student population and their staff. We have received letters talking about custodial work from across the district. So we certainly want to take time out of this meeting to recognize them, express our appreciation, and thank them for a job very well done.
The first word that pops to my mind is that he's very considerate, and he is just really one of the most considerate people I've ever met. Inside the building, I always say he's a good example of never doubt that one person can transform the world, because Gary transformed this building, and it makes a difference for every single employee and every single child that walks through the doors. So one of the things that sticks out to me, which he would not want me telling you, but I'm going to tell you because it's my time to brag on Gary. Each year we have 2 book fairs, and last year he realized that some of the students didn't have enough money to buy a book at the book fair. So he has started donating anonymously. Each year we have a book fair so that several students may go in and purchase at least one book from the book fair. I believe Gary is very deserving of a Distinguished Staff Award because I know the effort that he puts in, and I know the job that he does for our building. It is a huge building for one custodian, and I also just see the difference that he's made, the positive difference, and everybody that works here sings his praises every single day. I don't know what we would do without Gary. He's just an amazing person.
Dr. Anderson, this story is repeated in every building across the district. So again, I said that we owe them a debt of gratitude, and I know that Rob Seitz, our general director, he wanted to say a few words also about our custodial group.
All right, if Mr. Seitz is with us, we'll turn it over to him.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Okay, so what I did, I prepared a statement, so I'll make this very quick. Following spring break, our custodians were tasked with dealing with a new normal because of the COVID-19 pandemic that invaded our country. Suddenly, the Topeka Public Schools custodial staff went from a behind-the-scenes workforce to a very visible and upfront workforce. In my humble opinion, I truly believe that custodians across all industries, and including universities and K-12 schools, are somewhat underappreciated. However, their importance became quite clear to the entire nation as the significance of disinfecting spaces on a regular basis became extremely vital to protecting workers from the COVID-19 virus and quite possibly saving lives in the process. With that in mind, I want to take this time to express my sincere appreciation to the entire Topeka Public Schools custodial staff, not only from me, but from the entire administration to include our Board of Education members and every other district employee. As a group, you have worked tirelessly to keep our schools safe for occupation, allowed the education process to take place, and basically did what is necessary to protect employees and students from the coronavirus. All of you are true heroes in my book, and we continue to be amazed by your dedication to the district. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Seitz. And with that, again, I think just in closing on this piece, we so appreciate all of our custodians. Mr. Seitz and Mr. Robbins have coordinated opportunities to surprise custodians across the district with Unsung Hero Awards and a variety of other awards. And Ms. Hall has had the opportunity to be the deliverer of those as part of the communications team and others. So we just want to thank all of our custodians that are listening for all that they do and continue to do, and doing it with a smile and positive energy. Because of you, we are safer, cleaner, and better prepared to serve people. So again, thank you for all you do. As we prepare to go to our next highlight, with the highlights that have been given, are there any questions for Mr. Seitz about the number of custodians or anything else before we transition to our next highlight?
Ms. Stewart Campbell has a question, I think.
You may need to repeat the question, Dr. Mickelson. Either her microphone wasn't on or we just couldn't hear her well.
Maybe.
I have a note saying my microphone on.
So turn your red button on, but don't touch your computer keyboard.
Oh, so
Right, Mr. Gowan? Okay. So you're supposed to turn on the red button like normal
okay.
when you speak. Can you repeat those comments?
Yeah, so it's not a question, but my comment is to thank our custodial staff. And I mentioned that my grandfather was a custodian in the Winfield School District. And so as a child, I remember listening to all his stories. And I have a great affection for our custodians. And also the custodian at McCarter, you know, my husband teaches there. So I've heard about how great he is, and I know they all are. So I was really pleased to see him get the award. So congratulations.
Thank you. Any other comments? We know they're working hard, Ms. Boley.
I just wanted to say thank you to all our custodians. I think it's because of them that we have our doors open and that our doors remain open and our students are able to come. And the buildings are beautiful right now. Honestly, a lot of people aren't able to go in, but when you enter our schools right now, they gleam. It's just, our custodians have done a remarkable job, but I thank them for keeping our doors open.
Thank you, Mrs. Boley.
Good. With those acknowledgments for our custodians, and we would be remiss if we didn't, of course, thank the custodians who have set up the room that we're currently in and are cleaning the spaces in Burnett every day, which is Mr. Andy Juarez and Mr. Johnson. They certainly work tirelessly to keep us all prepared throughout central office. With that, we have a proclamation, and we do want to mention that it's both National Therapist Month as well as Audiology Awareness Month. And so I'm going to first ask Dr. Harrington to just share how many audiologists we have, and it's a small staff, and how many physical therapists, and that's also a tiny but mighty staff. And then we'll turn it over to our staff member to read the proclamation. Dr. Harrington, do you want to introduce your staff?
Yes, good evening, Dr. Anderson and the board. I am pleased to share with you tonight that we have one audiologist on staff. She joined us this year. Her name is Angelica Pearson. We have two full-time physical therapists, Jenna Hamilton and Marie Radke Young. Ms. Young will be reading the proclamation for us. And we have two physical therapist assistants, Perry Krogman and Kimberly Klaus. So we have an overall team of 5 to recognize tonight. And they work tirelessly to provide services to our students, and we appreciate everything they do.
All right, and we'll turn it over to Ms. Young to read the proclamation. And you would have seen, if you've been tracking our social media, I've asked the communications team to highlight them throughout the week, so they were in the community news and their names were listed there, but actually seeing them in action, working with young people this past week on social media. We'll turn it over to Ms. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. Whereas National Physical Therapy Month provides an opportunity for physical therapists and physical therapist assistants nationwide to educate their communities about who physical therapists are and what they contribute. And whereas National Physical Therapy Month has grown in popularity over the years and is now recognized celebration in the National Health Observances calendar. And whereas physical therapists are experts in restoring and improving the motion that is so crucial to our students' well-being, in many cases without surgery or medication. And whereas physical therapists can help our students address physical challenges, including but not limited to loss of flexibility, strength, and balance, and can teach students how to prevent or manage their health so that they will achieve an improved quality of life. And whereas the goals of Topeka Public Schools is to develop our students' educational, social, emotional, and physical well-being.
Thank you, Ms. Young. And we'll turn it over to the board if they have any questions from you or about what you do or about any members of the team. And again, thank you so much. We so not only appreciate you, but just the tremendous dedication. When I say tiny but mighty, that is really true this year, but you all are a small group, but such an important and vital group. Any board members have any questions regarding our physical therapists?
Mr. Munoz?
I'm curious about the type of work that you do in your schools. Could you tell me what does a typical day look like for you?
Yes, that's a great question. So every day is a little bit different, and we kind of divvy up our days So we bounce around to many different schools during the day. So I might go to 2 different schools in a day or up to like 4. And we have the opportunity to work with children both in the classrooms and outside of the classrooms. It's a little bit different this year, but we are so honored to be able to work with such amazing students.
I know from personal experience the benefit of a physical therapist, and between me and my family, it seems like we're always writing a check to a physical therapist, but it's always money well spent, it seems like. So I personally appreciate the work you do for our students, and I know it makes a difference in their ability to enjoy school and enjoy their life and heal from injury and be effective learners. So thank you for you and your staff and your colleagues for everything you do for our students.
With that, as we close out on that proclamation, we want to, as we give that additional thank you, we also want to acknowledge that it is Bosses Week. And the big bosses of the board, in front of you, you have a white bag that has in it a mask from one of the high schools, and also another gold nameplate with your name on it. And we just want to say happy National Bosses Day. We know there's a board recognition time where we give you a small token of appreciation, but we know that how much money you make, which is zero, and doing this job, your volunteerism is so appreciated. And behind Dr. Morrison, we know this is a milestone birthday week for you. So we won't share that a ripe young age that you are, but we wanted to just wish you a happy birthday with the banner that's behind you as well. Those are all of our highlights for this evening, I believe, unless I've left anything off. All right.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson. It's not the miles, but the road, huh, Mike? You know? I understand next on the agenda is public communications. We don't have anybody who's signed up for that, so we'll move on to business by consent. Entertain a motion to take care of that. Reverend Williams?
Mr. President, I move the board approve the items of business by consent as presented and authorize the board president and superintendent to sign the special project and purchasing contracts for and on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. Do we have a motion? Do we have a second? Dr. Bonebrake offers a second. Is there any discussion? Mr. Munoz.
Just one note that if you look at every month we have a number of donations, but this year seems to be a number of them, and I just wanted to highlight the many local companies as well as faith groups that have been kind and have contributed to Topeka Public Schools.
I agree. It seems like the list is 7 or 8 long. So Countryside United Methodist Church, Laird and Older Ford, Fellowship Bible Church, Reesers, Eric and Catherine Roletter, Grace Episcopal Cathedral, Western Hills Church, and Alex Stevens and Briggs Kia all made donations, most of them to Pine Ridge Prep, so that I know Pine Ridge will be appreciative of those donations. So we thank those organizations for thinking of our students. Any other discussion? Okay, Mrs. Lister, we're ready to vote. Thank you, Mrs. Lister. Next on the agenda is our superintendent's report. So the middle and high school first week of school update, our remote learning update, and then district enrollment update from Dr. Kipp.
Yes, and so as we jump into this, we have some students on with us on the screen with us, and some staff to share a little bit about the first week of school. And nothing better than hearing about it from the people that are experiencing it. So we're going to start off with our students, and I believe we have multiple students on with us this evening. I'll turn it over to Mrs. Wallace because much of this update about first week really focuses on the remote and in-person learning. We do want to remind all folks that are listening that we have both in-person experiences and remote. I'll start off with the in-person and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Wallace to introduce who's online for in-person. For the remote experiences. For our in-person experience, I believe we have a Topeka High student that's on with us today. And if you had the chance to look online, you also may have seen Topeka High right now is playing their game for homecoming, which is also tonight. So I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to share a little bit about her experience as she is participating in the in-person at the high school level. And then we'll move right on into remote. And the remote will start off with a brief 2-minute video of the elementary virtual platform, and then the other platforms will follow from students. Alyssa, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
We can.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so I'm sorry if you hear a little bit of background noise. I am at work, but I would just like to say that I'm really thankful for the opportunity to sit here and tell you guys about my experience so far. I will say that in the beginning, I was actually very scared about how things were going to work, and I was a little worried, but honestly, going to school, the staff has been so helpful and so very wanting to know what all the students need and how we can all help each other. And I will say that the community and the students have honestly been a lot more. I figured I would hear a lot of like pushback from the students, but all the students really seem to enjoy this new schedule. Very excited that this is just going so well. And I think all the teachers and faculty that I've come across have just been so helpful in trying to get everyone to keep pushing their education and keep learning. And I'm just very excited to be a part of a really healthy environment despite of the pandemic.
And Alyssa, what grade are you in? If I may ask, where do you work? Then I'm going to turn it over to the board to ask questions since you are a high school student experiencing the new daily schedule, which is different than some of the other schedules. So what grade and where do you, just out of curiosity, where do you work?
I'm in 11th grade, so that would make me junior. I'm so sorry, I had to think about that. I still feel like a sophomore sometimes, but I'm a junior this year, and I am very involved. So when it comes to like involvement in school and everything, I've had to adapt a little bit, but like I said, like everything so far has been very smooth sailing, very planned, very well. And then I work at Koloff Fitness.
All right, wow. Well, thank you for doing work, taking time to come and speak with our board. I'm going to turn it over to our board members regarding questions of a Topeka High student that is actually experiencing the new in-person schedule that's daily.
Any questions for Mrs. Stewart Campbell?
Hello, thank you for being here and answering our questions. Can you just walk us through your day, your school day?
Okay, so I'm in group A. So my class time is from 7:55 in the morning to 10:50 in the morning. And pretty much I go in and everybody goes in through the front, or if you're there during like the bell times, you can come in on Western. After that though, if you're late, then you have to come in through the front, but I'm usually early. So I go through on Western, we get our temperatures checked, we get hand sanitizer, we head to class. And my first class goes pretty simple. There's actually not a lot of people in either or any of my classes. All my numbers are under 10. So I personally feel safe in my environment in my classroom. And I go through about my classes pretty easy. There's only 4 per day. And it's very simple. People are very respecting the space. They make sure that we hand sanitize before we leave and before we enter any classroom. So after I get there, it's pretty much just classes. And each class, we pretty much have the same standard schedule. We go through whatever assignment we did the day before or whatever we got over the weekend, and we walk through it. We have free time to ask questions, and they try to, get us more on track since we did miss a little bit of time in school. So we're in a little bit of a rush. So I hope I answered your question as well as possible.
Yes, you did. Thank you. But when you get home, then you have assignments that you continue to work on using Google Classroom. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I think the feedback is on our end a little bit. So as they adjust that feedback, we'll see if anyone else has questions. As we know you're at work, so we can free you on up. Then we have our last in-person student from the middle school.
like before from remote was better, or that this more time in classroom is better for you?
For me personally, I really like this half-day schedule. Since it is a half day, I really like having the rest of the day to myself. I have found myself having more free time, honestly, which is really odd. You'd think like having to do more homework outside of school would, I don't know, give me a little less free time, especially since I work. But I've also found myself going outdoors more, which is very interesting because I feel like a lot of times last year I only really went outside for games. And I think it's really nice, honestly. Like last night, me and my friends went hammocking, and I found like a lot more time to really be outside and be with my friends and really get to enjoy life, but still, persevere through school throughout the pandemic.
Dr. Morrison.
So, Alyssa, is there any negatives you could tell us? Anything that we could help you do or we could do better?
Well, speaking of that, I actually did have something in mind. Although everything has been very positive experience so far, I actually talked to a few of my peers to get different perspectives on what might be going on. So I'm sorry. As you guys know, for students that are kind of, going back and forth and have to use the bus because maybe their parents can't take them, or I personally drive, so I don't personally have to experience this. But I was talking to Miss Morrissey today, and we were talking about breaking the bias when it comes to, riding the city bus. So our school provides, well, Topeka High School in specific, I'm not sure if every single 501 school provides this, but Topeka High School in specific, I'm so sorry, pretty much provides school bus passes to ride the city bus for free. And I found that a lot of students don't actually do this, and they have to walk really far. I've heard of 5 students that have to walk across town to get home because they're not exactly sure how to ride the city bus. So as a student leader within my school, I've been thinking about educating people on, like where to go, because as being like a young woman in Topeka, as much as I would like to feel safe in our city, it's a little difficult to feel so, especially since 2 girls have recently gone missing and parents are a little concerned about that. And I just really want to start maybe an education process in order to inform students on how to properly ride the city bus, what stops are near their house. I feel like a lot of students would really love this opportunity if they knew how to properly use it.
That's an excellent suggestion, Alyssa, that we'll follow up on. That's in terms of just even partnering with the Metro to provide something actually at the school to be able to do that along with their maps that they provide. Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Alyssa before she goes back to work? I don't see any. So thank you, Alyssa, for sharing part of your evening with us tonight.
No, thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you, Alyssa. Have a good evening. All right, so with that, as Alyssa transitions, we do have a virtual video. Now we have another in-person school, that's the college prep, but we're gonna start with our 2-minute clip of our virtual learning. This is a pilot. We are the only district in Kansas that is offering virtual 4th and 5th grade. So we have remote, virtual, and in-person. We'll go ahead and start the virtual learning platform video.
The pilot program that we're adopting here in TPS 501 is Calvert. And the Calvert program that we've adopted right now supports students. The pilot program that we're adopting here in TPS 501 is Calvert. And the Calvert program that we've adopted right now supports students in grades 4 through 5, 100% virtual. Students will navigate the program and go through different courses such as ELA, math, social studies, science, art, and PE.
I mean, we've really been happy with it. It's been beneficial for us, the fact that it is self-paced. If, like I told you from the very beginning, we just moved. And so the fact that we had a little bit of flexibility on when and where we could do school was, very helpful for us, whether we do it in the morning or in the evening or even on the weekends for that matter.
It's very important that you check in with the students at least once a week. And so our check-in time is on Mondays for an hour with 4th grade, and then I spend an hour with 5th grade. After we check in around their understanding of the content, then we do something fun that is related to the content, like take a field trip. So the families sign up to be the child's coach. If I see that a student is falling behind, then I'll send the link to the student and the parent as well. So I keep the parent 100% in the loop, and the parent keeps me 100% in the loop. So it's kind of like a trio, myself, the student, and the parent, and we're all working together to make sure that the child gets the best experience.
We sit side by side all day. So while he's doing his work, I'm working from home. So that gives me an opportunity to kind of talk to him about what he's doing as he's going through it.
I actually feel honored to be able to coordinate this for our 4th and 5th grade students, because what I have learned is that when we have those high expectations for our students, they will rise to the occasion. And these 14 wonderful students have done just that.
Now, prior to the pandemic, we submitted a request to offer virtual learning for 4th and 5th. We've always offered it for 6th through 12th. We're one of the only places in the region offering it for 6th through 12th. It is yet another platform, but it's intended to be a bit more family involved, and it would require that kind of involvement. So we just want to make sure that we're aware of that third platform within this remote/virtual environment. We'll be answering questions at the end, and Dr. Malone, who works under Dr. Gray, the Director of Instructional Services, is on the line to answer questions. If we can hold our questions for just a moment, as we do have a couple of other students on and a parent that would like to share their experience. And then Mrs. Wallace has a brief PowerPoint on the instructional time guidelines. And then we'll just open this up for the board to ask any questions they have. Tiajane is on the line, and she is the other in-person student. We made sure that we got our high school student back to work as quickly as possible. Tiajane is a college prep. As you may remember, TCALC is open every day, and Tiajane has chosen, I believe, in person. Tiajane, if you're on the line, if you want to share a little bit about your experience within maybe 1 or 2 minutes for the board of what your day looks like on an average day and how your experience is going the first week of school as a middle schooler. And I'm sorry, as a high schooler.
I am actually, hi guys, I'm Tiajane, and I'm actually a remote student, fully remote.
That's right. That's right. I'm sorry, you are right. And so you're joining the video for your remote piece. And you look older now. Oh my goodness, I haven't seen you since last year. All right, so Tiajane, do you want to share a little bit about your remote experience and how that's working for you?
I honestly love being remote because I have more time to go and learn on my pace. So I'm able to break up my assignments and just let myself focus more. But also, sometimes I have trouble focusing, but then since I have so much time, since I am remote, I'm able to refocus myself and really sit there and do my assignments without too many distractions of being in a classroom.
And then can you share who your teacher is? Because you are not on the virtual platform, correct? You're remote with a particular teacher in school, correct?
No, yeah. But I go to all my classes just fully remote.
So Ms. Foster is one of your teachers, and then what high school are you at?
I'm at Highland Park High School.
Right, so hearing from Tiajane as one of our remote, fully 100% remote learners. The other fully remote learners, Mrs. Wallace will introduce, and then we will go from there. Ms. Foster is on the line as one of the college prep teachers, but we'll move from Tiajane and hear from other remote learners, and then we'll go into our remote platforms that we're providing. Ms. Wallace?
Yes, so we have a parent online, Miss Kristen Miller. She has students at Jardine Middle School and Topeka High School, and they are all remote. So Ms. Miller, if you'd like to share.
Hello. Yes, I first want to thank you guys for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm the parent of 2 Topeka High students and 2 Jardine Middle School students, and I have a preschooler who all participate in our remote learning program. I advocate for the program because I've noticed a lot of benefits for my children. They have less distractions, like you have in the classroom. So they're all sitting with A's and B's consistently. They're able to get their homework done in the afternoon or in the morning, depending on which student it is. And the teachers and the staff have been amazing to work with. They keep good tabs on the kids. I've got an email saying, hey, so-and-so is missing this. Can you get it turned in by the end of the week? I always know when I send an email, I get it right back. Then I also have a child that, even though she's fully remote, she also does Link Crew and Stugo. She's actually with Miss Dipnorine on a lot of programs. So she's been able to go to school. The teachers work with her as far as missing any remote learning and catching up. And it's just been amazing for my kids. I've seen great improvements. My 7th grader, or my 8th grader even said the other day, Mom, this is the first time I've ever had straight A's. And so that's really exciting for him as well.
Are you at the homecoming game?
Yes, ma'am. You know it. I'm the hoy, mighty Troy, I tell you.
Well, thank you for joining us from the game, and they may have a couple of questions for you.
That's no problem.
We have one more remote parent. She was actually at DCAC. She's from Stout Elementary, and while we really are focusing on our middle and high school schedules, our Stout Elementary parent was remote and asked to change to a virtual platform. So she's been on the virtual for all but 1 week. And we'll turn it over to our Stout family. And Ms. Miller, can you mute yourself?
That would be me, Brenda Kelsey. I have a 4th grader, and he's actually in the gifted program also. So that was part of the problem, is that remote wasn't pushing him enough, and he was getting bored throughout the remote setting. So when we switched him to virtual, he's now able to stay on task better. He's able to focus better because he doesn't have distractions of the other classmates. Honestly, once the pandemic is over, we might stick with the virtual because it's working so well. I'm kind of a tech person, so it's not super hard for me to go in and check on all of his work, but I don't think it would be hard for someone that's not tech savvy either, because the program is pretty simple to use. Let's see, what else did I want to say? Oh, I also contacted his virtual teacher that works at McCarter, and they were telling me that the suggestions I was making, I can suggest to the, not manufacturer, what word am I looking for? The people who created the program. I can actually make my suggestions to them to improve the program. So I have a meeting with them tomorrow to see if maybe there's a few things we can tweak about this and make it even better. So yeah, I'm very happy with virtual.
Thank you. And you were actually being changed to virtual the next morning. So when we called you, you were already on virtual before we could fully resolve your issue, as you were already on Calvert. So we're glad to know that it's worked out the very first week. I'm going to turn it back to Ms. Wallace to see if there are any other families that you'd like to speak. And then, of course, Mrs. Hoffman and Mr. Hare are here to share just a little bit about this half-day schedule from a secondary standpoint. And then Ms. Wallace has her PowerPoint. Ms. Wallace, any other speakers outside of Mrs. Hoffman?
No, there are no other speakers.
All right, Ms. Hoffman, it has been the first few days with midday pickup and release. So are there any comments that you'd like to make about the first week of school for our board members?
Yes, it's been remarkably positive. I feel like anything that we were a little stressed out with how things were going, it ended up being very nice. I can't say enough about how great our parents have been, and they've been very gracious and patient with us as we've worked on traffic flows and getting our grab and go lunches out and helping their students adjust to their half-day schedules of instruction. We're also continuing to work with parents and students and teachers on how that other half of the day works as far as helping students ensure that they have the resources they need, the supply kits that we sent home, instructional resources to complete assignments as they're working independently at home. We also want to make sure they have good communication back with the school throughout the afternoon, so if they are needing some additional assistance, that we can provide that. But I really, under the circumstances, with all the things that are going on, I really feel like we've gotten off to as positive of a start as we can. So.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Mrs. Wallace is going to just share her a brief PowerPoint and then turn it over to the board for questions for our students, parent, or staff members. And Mr. Here is on. It's just he spoke last time, so he's just on in the background if there are other questions. Ms. Wallace?
So I'll start with just sharing what the KSDE guidelines were for remote learning. So one of the requirements is that students have a daily meaningful contact with a local teacher. So that is at the secondary, it is the synchronous Zooming into classes. And at elementary, it is their twice-a-day Zooms. Parent guardian signed assurances that provide support for their students during their remote learning. A student is regularly enrolled in school in our district and that they would normally have attended. That the curriculum and instruction is prepared and provided and supervised by teachers and staff of the district. Remote learning should approximate what a student would experience in the classroom. And it is not simply virtual curriculum that's purchased and students are placed in it to be self-paced. So that would be a difference between remote and virtual. So in some of the ways that we're meeting those requirements would be that at the secondary level, students Zoom in daily to synchronously to classes. And at elementary, we have remote teachers that work with kids twice a day, once in the morning, once in the afternoon. It ranges from 30 to 40 minutes each time. And then a digital survey monkey was sent to parents to collect their digital signatures for that assurance piece. And then all students are receiving remote instruction, are enrolled in Topeka Public Schools. Our curriculum and instruction is planned and provided by TPS teachers, and it's being provided, students online in remote learning are being provided the same curriculum and instruction that kids in school are. It's aligned to the Kansas standards, and our curriculum design maps are aligned to the Kansas standards. So what they're getting online with their remote teacher would be the same instruction they're getting in the classroom. And then instruction uses multiple platforms that require teachers to customize and personalize their learning for them. So there isn't any one particular program that we're utilizing. So with our digital programs, we have the primary platform for elementary is Seesaw. And then at secondary, it's Google Classroom. And then those other resources that we provided are MobiMax, which is an online platform that allows students to practice math, language arts, science, and social studies. It is not a replacement for instruction, but just an opportunity for additional practice. Great Minds in Sync, which is connected to our Eureka Math series. They provide instructional videos, and then they have a fillable PDF that we've purchased that makes that much easier and smoother for kids to respond and do their work online and then download it to teachers so that they get it back. Those are both programs that are available at elementary and secondary. And then Mystery Science, Discovery Education, Newsella. And then at the secondary, we have purchased all of our novels for language arts on the Follett library system, so students have access to an online novel. And the kids that are in school, if they prefer a print material. We have the novels and print material also. We've also, one of the other things that has been really helpful for remote is that we've had opportunities for kids to have pickup of resources and materials. The parent that was on earlier spoke to me today about it's been very easy for them to pick up a math textbook at a school if they needed one, or any other additional textual materials. And we also provided all students K-12 with a learning kit that was specific to their grade level and their needs, with manipulatives, colored pencils, just the kinds of things you might need in a classroom that you wouldn't necessarily have at home also. And then we've made some adjustments to our elementary remote model to make it friendlier for the teachers who are teaching remote. So we've recommended that they have one graded assignment per week in language arts and math, and not to feel overwhelmed with the number of assignments that might be coming in, and to be really thoughtful and intentional about what that assignment they take for a grade is. And so we've made a recommendation on their teacher resource spreadsheet of what that assignment could be. It's just recommended. They could select something else that's standards-based as well. We're providing Apple Pens or styluses so that they can give written feedback digitally on assignments. Created a collaborative Google Drive for remote teachers so that they can share their lesson plans and activities amongst themselves at the same grade level. That's really a big time saver for many of them. We're adding instructional videos to the digital Seesaw library, so they don't have to go to a third place, pull it down and put it into their Seesaw. It's already in the district Seesaw library, so they can just go grab it and put it in their classroom. 4th and 5th grade teachers can have a choice to use Google Classroom as an alternative to Seesaw. They had previously used Google Classroom, and the learning curve for Seesaw maybe was a little steep. And then schools can work together to adjust their teaching assignment. So we had some and have some remote teachers who might be teaching 2 grade levels. An example would be McEachran and McCarter over this last week. They came together and they both had a teacher who was teaching 2 different grades. So one of the teachers took 1 grade, and they took, the McCarter teacher took some kids from McEachran, and the McEachran teacher took some kids from McCarter. So now they're teaching 1 grade level, and they're sharing kids between their 2 schools. And so that has lightened their planning load, which is a big chunk of what is perhaps stressful to remote teachers, is that the planning is the same whether you're teaching to 5 kids or 25 kids. So that has really allowed them to minimize the time spent in planning instruction. And then in some places, we have shifted 4th and 5th graders from our remote teaching model to our virtual school pilot program. And some of those places would be State Street, Williams, Meadows, and then the district teachers who were providing 4th and 5th grade direct instruction.
With that overview of remote, we're going to turn it over to our board. The last instructional time guidelines, it's posted for you to see what those times are, so you can see the morning and afternoon Zooms. And we're going to turn it over to you for questions you might have. We also have our state Board of Education representative, Miss Ann Ma, who often visits the board. She's in the audience, which is on the screen, I believe, as well as we are really trying to be as collaborative as possible with answering questions and sharing information. And then, of course, the teachers and principals and students are online if you have questions for them specifically. We'll turn it over to you, Dr. Mickelson, for any questions from the board.
Thank you, Dr. Anderson, and welcome to Mrs. Ma for joining us this evening. Are there any questions for Dr. Anderson, Ms. Wallace, or Mr. Munoz?
You know, I'm curious about, you made reference to it, the fact that this is really tough on our teachers, right, to be able to juggle all of this. And I'm wondering, what processes do we have in place to sort of hear back on teachers on things that are working or things that aren't working, and where we can make adjustments?
And Ms. Watson, I'll tag team that a little bit. They have the Wednesday collaboration. So principals are being asked to meet with their staff. So they're doing their staff meetings. In fact, we have a principal online. So I'll just have her answer that, because so you can hear directly from people. Ms. Hoffman, how are you getting feedback from your teachers and managing all of this? And how are you holding those collaborative conversations?
Really utilizing our PLCs and working with our assistant principals at the secondary level and our instructional coaches to help teachers process, to get feedback from them on what's working, and to provide an opportunity for them to share things that are successful, so that we don't have every individual teacher trying to reinvent the wheel. So we're really trying to provide those opportunities for teachers to be able to work together. Really just trying to hit those PLCs in a manner where it's really kind of focused on the technology piece, on how to engage those remote learners. Like in my building today, my instructional coach worked and did a circle with my teachers in PLC on just what's working, what's not, and they brainstormed a whole list of things that are working that we'll put out so that everybody can see it. I feel like we're holding probably more frequent meetings, trying to come together and work through various challenges, leaning on each other, trying to impress on teachers. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. What we want to do is focus on effective direct instruction while we have kids here, and hopefully that will help us bring everything together. I don't know if Mr. Hare wants to add anything of stuff that he's doing in his building as well.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Hoffman on the same things that they're doing. And she mentioned too about PLCs, and we've been hitting our PLCs just a lot with just instruction. I mean, we're planning together, we're creating common lessons, and we are using, I mean, we have 5 collaboration periods in a week that we're bringing our teams together and just really working and coaching them along the way, working side by side, and just working together rather than in isolation. So we are doing what's best for kids, and we have hurdles here and there, and we overcome together. And teachers are just pretty positive right now, and I think they are enjoying collaboration time. And some of our teachers teach in isolation. Like I have an art teacher, and Ms. Hoffman has an art teacher, and they happen to be on the same collaboration time at each other's schools. So our art teachers actually collaborate together too, being the only art teachers in each building. So we're just trying to provide lots of support and keep things as simple as possible, but in the same mindset, just doing what's best for kids and keeping kids learning.
I can't say enough how hard our teachers are working, and this is not just a French thing or a Jardine thing. I can speak to all middle schools. They're working very hard. They really want to set high expectations and maintain high expectations for students. They want to provide a rigorous instruction. They also know that they need to allow some grace and be patient with students. I just can't be more proud of our teachers and how they have risen to the bar that we've set, and are really, like Mr. Hare said, overcoming and doing an outstanding job under challenging circumstances.
Right. And if I could just do one more thing, we talk about direct instruction and our model with kids, and I have personal kids in a different district who are getting a whole different ball game in their aspect. But what's nice about our district is our kids, whether you are remote or whether you're in person A or B, are getting 5 days a week of at least 45 minutes of direct instruction in math and reading. And during a pandemic and time like this, remote learning, having a class period every day where you're getting direct instruction, no matter what choice you make for your learning style, has been just amazing for our children.
The other very important piece that schools also have a chief role in playing is not just maintaining a good educational environment, but also checking on that social emotional piece with kids and having eyes on kids every day, even if it's a shorter amount of time than we're used to, even if it's on a screen. That is key in us being able to connect with families and know when we need to make a porch visit or when we need to call a parent and check in. It's been critical in making sure that kids and families are maintaining and doing as best as they can.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. We're going to turn it back to the board, and we do have a couple of elementary principals, Ms. Keegan, Ms. Hoffman's former assistant principal. She's on from Williams, and Mr. Schrader from Ross. So if board members, you have specific questions to certain levels, they'll be able to answer those as well. Thank you both, Ms. Hoffman and Mr. Hare.
So I have a quick question for the principals, and that Mr. Hare mentioned hurdles, and this isn't all gone smoothly, I'm certain. And so what hurdles do you still have on your to-do list that you wish you could resolve or cure, or what are those things that are still pending that are still problematic to you from an instructional leader perspective?
When I talk about hurdles, the biggest thing that we tend to talk about in PLCs is, teachers want to do the best job for all kids. So, a lot of it is just with their mindset of, really they're just their mindset of how do I reach all kids, whether they're an A kid, a B kid, a remote kid. So they're just wanting to do best for all kids. So some of those hurdles are just, keeping those teachers knowing that you are doing a great job. You are doing what's best for kids, because they always want to do better. That's just teachers. They just always want to do better and want to make sure that they are servicing. We talk about customer service a lot in all of our buildings, and that's one of our goals, is to make sure that all of our people's needs are met. And so that's just, our personal mission. And so those are some of those hurdles, just to make sure that we're doing all that.
I would say one hurdle that we're, at least in my building, we're currently working on is I'm just really trying to make sure that those remote learners are engaged. Our kids that are in our classrooms, we see them, we see what they're doing, we can look over their shoulder and see the work that they're doing, see their faces up close. It's a little bit more challenging to kind of get the feel for remote learners, if they're truly engaged, if they're really paying attention, if they've got paper in front of them and working. So our teachers are trying to be creative in how they keep those kids engaged. I was in a room just the other day and I had a teacher leading a lesson, and when she posed her question, she said, okay, I want 3 responses to this question. I want 2 from class and I want 1 from the Zoom. And so, so they're just trying to find ways to keep those kids that are on Zoom engaged and feeling a part of what's happening. In another room, they had them paired up doing a partner activity, and it was an in-class person paired up with a Zoom kid trying to carry on with the discussion. They just want to make sure that nobody's feeling cheated and that everybody has a sense of belonging, and that everybody has all of the support instructionally that they need.
How are we addressing the mental and social needs of our students and our staff? So I worry about kind of mental fatigue of our faculty. Just, they're working hard, I know that, and they're worried about kids that they can't see. How are we addressing that as building leaders to make sure we maintain energy and mental fitness, and just kind of not burning out? Because I think there's a chance for that. Sure.
Really, every time I meet with teachers, we're trying to identify something that we might be able to put pause on for now and find something that can come off the plate, something that maybe we can shift to somebody else in order to alleviate some extra stressors on classroom teachers who are working all day with kids. So we're always looking for those types of things. In my building, we're constantly trying to just leave little positive notes. And it's amazing just the comment, the recognizing teachers and what they're doing and how hard they're working, them just hearing that, and they knowing that their boss or whoever recognizes that, I think is always helpful. Just really trying to celebrate the things that are going well and making sure that we're sharing that with everybody. That's been really important. Our counselors, our social workers have been critical. Our SROs have been critical in helping us connect with families and making sure that they have the things that they need, and checking in on families. Every day, my mental health team has a list of kids that they're reaching out to, that they are going and visiting families if they're remote families, hooking them up with resources. It's really been all hands on deck, and that's one way that we're just trying to divvy it up and make sure everybody is on board to help pitch in so that nobody is left out or goes unnoticed.
One of the things that we have done in elementary is try to, at some point during the day, have the teachers just talk about, share some work that kids have done. And in our 5th grade classes today, they shared writing samples from their students. And 2 of the teachers came at the end of the day and said, I was so frustrated today, but this is why I do this. This is like, look at this improvement. And so trying to really bring it back to kids and the impact that we are making. Another thing that I've done for the staff is reach out to some retired teachers and ask them to just write motivational notes. And I've asked for some of our church partners to do it. And so I have notes to just pop in boxes as they come in, and we should by Christmas have 2 or 3 notes for every staff member. And it's just nice to know that other people that have walked in your shoes before are giving that encouragement.
Dr. Mickelson, Mrs. State Representative Ms. Ma, thank you both, Ms. Keegan and Ms. Hoffman. And it feels so funny with the 2 of you all on 2 different sides of town now, but still both the same great energy. Dr. Mickelson, State Representative Ma is on. Are you okay with me offering her an opportunity to pose a question or 2 that she might have? And if she doesn't have any, then to just continue with any other questions?
Absolutely.
All right, Ms. Ma?
Well, thank you. No, I just appreciate the opportunity to sit in and listen and see how things are going. It's interesting across the area that I serve, how many different ways we're finding to reach out and teach kids. So all the new ideas that I hear when I am able to listen, I just really appreciate that opportunity.
All right, thank you. And I think you had a question about singleton classes as well. Did you have a question that you had about if someone's only teaching like physics or something like that, or one class, such as the art teacher? Did that get answered for you already?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe we could check in about that sometime later. If I'm not sure how long the answer would be, but like, let's say you're unique. You it might be a history class or something. You're the only one that teaches it. And you don't have an online platform, you know, like Summit or something already built for you, and you have hybrid, how do you develop that online or the remote learning for the students that you know, when they're not with you? Do you build your own platform, or how does that work?
So, Mr. Hare, do you have that situation where, because that would be more of a secondary item, that if you have a unique class and they're hybrid, then how does a teacher teach a class that's unique, be it music or history or science?
Right. You know, for like art class, I mean, I'm sitting in my front office in my building right now, and I have a whole cart up here of art supplies to get home to parents. So we have our remote learners will drop by and pick up their at-home supplies, so they can be having hands-on experiences for kids, just like they would in the classroom. So that teacher does that. A lot of our, you know, standards with art, different things are pretty broad when it comes to like digital citizenship. Like all my kids have a digital platform to put their art in. And so that's their platform and that's a portfolio that they'll take clear to the high school that high school teachers will look at. And so, you know, we use a lot of flip grid videos. Teachers will, you know, maybe create just a little bit of a different experience at home if they can't do it all, and still create those standards for the at-home kids and the kids here on a typical day while the kids are working. You know, the morning kids for us are remote. So she may get the kids started in the classroom, and then she goes on to her Zoom class, who's also there, and just does some small group stuff with them. And so, you know, teachers are just being super creative. making sure that all kids really have the same experiences.
And
So
and I was going to say, Algebra 1 in 8th grade would be another example of that, correct? As to what Ms. Small was just talking about. Dr. McDonald just sent me a little note that might be one. And don't they Zoom in with the teacher? What does that look like for that hybrid piece?
Right, for us, you know, we've combined some resources. So my algebra teacher, so our kids can experience high school algebra who make those cut scores and things like that. It has actually a Robinson teacher. And so she Zooms into my classes and we through Zoom. And then I have somebody in my class who's working with kids on site too. So, you know, a lot of our classes like that are actually getting kind of experience of two different teachers who can, you know, break it down together and separate kids and give kids more individualized instruction every day. And so we're just, I think we're being very creative across our district right now. Just, you know, we have using our resources to the best and combining things, and we're all one together. You know, we talk about that, we're all in this together kind of thing. And so I think this has really, you know, made us think outside our boxes of how we can come together as 6 middle schools. I know Robinson also does something similar, Landon with algebra, you know, so all kids can have those opportunities.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Turn it back to you, Dr. Mickelson, on any other questions for our staff on first day in remote learning.
Are there other questions, Dr. Morrison?
For Ann Ma. Ms. Ma, what you're seeing throughout the state, do you think, and this is a question I think that everybody would be interested in, do you see the education process changing over the next 5 years just from the experiences that we're having right now?
Oh, absolutely. And I think everybody would tell you that when the dust settles from the virus and we get back to something that looks more normal, we're going to, I hope, keep the best of what we learned. I think there are some things we do that we really like. I think Dr. Anderson mentioned there may be some students who want to stay virtual, and that may be an option. It may be, we don't have snow days anymore because we know how to roll over to a virtual path, but we're learning how to do so many things so creatively. We're not going to let some of these go. We're going to keep them. And maybe if anything good came out of this, it forced everybody to get creative about how we teach and how kids learn. And hopefully we're going to keep the best of that.
Do we know that our children are getting the same education, knowledge? Because it was my understanding that prior to this 2020 COVID disaster, that our children required 1,160 hours of education. They're not getting nearly that with virtual and Zoom.
Well, Ms. Wallace, can you address that question regarding instructional time and what they are getting and what they're required to get?
Yes, so you are correct that the time in school with teachers is not the same, but we do have 360 minutes a day of instruction. And, you know, teachers often gave independent practice opportunity during class time. Now that class time is not being used for that independent practice. That's going to be put on save or push pause, and they do that in the other half of their day. So I would agree that there's not as much face time with the teacher, but the opportunities for learning are still the same number of minutes.
Mrs. Boley.
I, as a teacher in the past, still am actually, I had so many concerns for our teachers who were teaching remote, and I reached out to Dr. Anderson and Mrs. Wallace about those concerns, and I just want to thank them for being so active in looking at those concerns and talking with our staff members and finding solutions and all the things that you shared with me tonight were concerns that I had about remote, and that you have addressed them. And I'm hoping that that will help our teachers not have as much burnout. I know that this is really hard, and we appreciate them so much for what they're doing. But I just appreciate your quick reaction to my concerns on that, and I appreciate that so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm just reminded of a comment you made either the last meeting or a month ago, when the ability to pivot was going to be critical to our success. And I think not only from a parent's perspective, a student's perspective, the teachers and building leaders perspective, we're going to pivot again. I know, so I thought that was wise counsel you gave to all of us. Just go ahead.
So I have a question for our remote and virtual parents. If there's anybody that's still there that's not gone off back to their games, and do we still have some of those parents on?
Well, once you ask your question, we'll be able to kind of search. I think they might have gone dark for now.
I'm just wondering how.
I'm still here.
Oh, good. So I understand that you feel like you're being so successful with that program. What is it that you are doing that makes you feel so successful that might be some good information for parents that are struggling?
Well, I check my kids' grades even when they're in class. Prior to COVID, I check my kids' grades 3 times a week through Tyler Sys. I also make sure that I go over with them any missing assignments that I see in Tyler Sys, and communicate with my kids and their teachers to make sure that everything gets taken care of. I have a senior, and I still make him email his teachers, CC me in the email, so that I know that he's communicating with them and they're communicating back, and we know that the work is getting done. I think that when your kids are remote, it does require a lot of parent involvement, and you staying proactive and being on your students about making sure that they're doing their work, and just maintaining that communication with the teachers so that you know that their work is getting completed.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Thank you for all the efforts that you're putting in to make it so successful for your children.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Ms. Stewart Campbell has a question.
So on Monday, I visited middle school, and it was really nothing short of amazing what I saw teachers doing, and all staff, the principal, I mean, everybody. It's really incredible. My question / concern is the Zoomers. So I've heard some teachers call the remote learners the Zoomers. So our remote learners are Zooming in. I'm going to look over here. Our remote learners are Zooming in the morning with the Group A students. In our afternoon Group B students, no one's Zooming in. So for our teachers, I saw teachers needing to go, back and forth with their in-person students and their remote learners, whereas the B students, the teacher doesn't have to multitask. So I guess my question is, what are we already doing? So I guess this question is for the middle school principals on what more can we be doing to support our staff for the A students who need to be doing both remote and in-person students?
Ms. Hoffman?
I think that is occurring at certain buildings. Like in my buildings, I gave my teachers choice as to when they wanted those remote students to Zoom in, because I wanted them to have something that they could have some control over at a time when there's lots out of their control. And so some of my teachers chose to have all the remote kids Zoom in the morning, and some like to have it split so they're not all stressed at one part of the day or the other. We do try to, what we've done in my building is really try to spread out our clusters of ELL students and special education students, and then with that comes additional staff often in those co-taught or para-supported classes, so that there can be some support in there with another adult. We've just made sure that they know they have many options of whether they want to team with a grade level partner and one teacher take on all the Zoom kids for a particular class and the other, if numbers allow, for the hybrid. So I feel like we support them in not mandating one certain way that they need to do it, that they have choice, so it fits their teaching style, their classroom management style, and allows them to feel like they have some of that control. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Right, and if I could just add just a little bit, we're doing the same thing. I think all the middle schools are. We spread out our support staff, and we're utilize that morning times when I generally get around all classes myself. So I support teachers in the class, and if they need an extra hand, my assistant principal's in there, we're in there. But one of the other things that we are doing right now is we do have a little Title I money. And so one of the things I'm doing is using some Title I money this year to get maybe a para or two that we can hire on that will be able to provide a little bit more support for kids, which also provides support for teachers. So just getting classrooms with 2 adults in them is beneficial, and it's helping teachers feel good about the remote versus the kids in class. But more hands makes better instruction for kids.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. And while Mr. Hare is finishing that point up, Dr. Kipp is actually on the line with us just to kind of share what that enrollment number is overall with remote and in-person learning.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Anderson. Good evening. For our official count day, we had 13,183 students. That is about a 300 student loss from last year. So basically, this presentation, we're going to run through it pretty quick. The numbers are essentially the same as last year in terms of percentages. We're just dealing with a lower population. So male and female, that's about normal in terms of split. Next slide, please. Race, this distribution is about the same as it was last year. Again, our fastest growing population are the Hispanic students. Next slide. And again, ELL and special education numbers. ELL is just right about 12% of our district, and then special education's coming in at about 21%, which is similar to last year. And then this particular slide kind of illustrates where the drop is kind of stemming from. Over the past 5 years, we've kind of seen a steady decline at our elementary, in particular our kindergarten kiddos, excuse me. And then middle school had a slight drop, but what's really promising is high school. We're holding on to a lot more high school kids, seniors, and with the individual plans of study, I really feel like we're holding on to these kids and getting them on a track for post-secondary education. So that's it in a nutshell. If anybody has any questions about enrollment, I'd be happy to field them.
So those are all of the items we have to present. We'll turn it back over to you, Dr. Mickelson, and then Dr. Gray will be taking the remainder of the meeting from here. Thank you, principals, parents, and students. Assuming there are no other questions, we just thank you all for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Dr. Kipp, you cut out a little bit, I think, and I heard the total enrollment, but I didn't hear the remote numbers.
Yes, and actually, I apologize, I skipped over that. We are, as a district, still hovering right around 3,000 students that are 100% remote. Now, we do have the opportunity next week to kind of establish if some kids want to come back for second quarter in person. We're going to start opening up a survey to parents to assess their desire for a change. But yeah, we've been holding steady about 3,000 remote students for quite some time.
And what do you anticipate the survey, what's your hypothesis on the survey questions? Do you think they're gonna?
Well, it's interesting. It's almost like watching the stock market, and you know, it's a symptom of kind of where we are as a county in terms of the COVID situation, where the scorecard lies. I've seen a correlation between parents that reach out and want to maybe go more the remote route because of some apprehension and fear. But actually at the elementary, they've been kind of going the opposite. They've been wanting to go in person more. There's actually waiting lists at some of the elementaries because of social distancing. They can only have a capacity for an X number of kids. So principals are developing waiting lists to get those kids in, and next week we'll start transitioning those kids in best we can, and yeah, try to accommodate as many as we can in person while keeping the safety at the forefront.
Thank you.
You bet.
Any other questions for Dr. Kipp? Mrs. Bully?
Dr. Kipp, I was wondering, with the pandemic, if we feel like we have parents keep their students home from kindergarten because of the illness, do we have 300 students short, and of course our kindergarten was a low enrollment. Do we think we'll get some of those back in first grade?
I think so. Some of the kindergarten parents I've talked to just, you know, they have that luxury, that latitude to hold back and wait till next year. They were just going to kind of wait and see how this year went with the pandemic. And certainly, you know, Kansas law allows them that flexibility if they don't want to have their kids back. So definitely, you know, I can sense, but the downward trend was in kindergarten, we've been dropping even before the pandemic. And frankly, many districts are losing at the lower grade levels. So we're going to kind of see some natural drops in enrollment throughout the state, I believe. And from what I've read, other districts are feeling that same thing.
And that's true across the county too, I think, isn't it, Dr. Kipp? That most districts are seeing a decrease.
Yeah, I mean, the results are still unaudited and preliminary, but from what I've heard from my colleagues, they are sort of seeing, I mean, Topeka, I think, is on its 8th consecutive year of population decline. You know, we'll see how the 2020 census rolls out, but, you know, there's some changing demographics and sociological factors going on here. You know, millennials aren't having kids as early as some of the baby boomers, and so there's a lot of layers going on here, and we'll see how it plays out. And then on top of it, a pandemic. So we'll see what happens next August.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Hi, Dr. Kipp.
Hello.
Hello, hola. My question is, I got concerned when you said there's a waiting list, so I wasn't aware of that. So are you saying that there's parents who want their elementary, parents who want their children in the building, but there's just not room because the number can't exceed, you know, like 15. So can you speak a little more to that? Like, how many are we talking on a waiting list? And I just would like to hear more about that.
Sure, absolutely. You know, certain grade levels are, you know, it just depends on the grade level, the school. You know, that magical number of 15 per room is, you know, kind of the target we don't want to go above. Now, I do know after, you know, talking with Ms. Sharp, Director of Preschool and Elementary, these waiting lists are very few and far between. There is still plenty of room at many of our schools. You know, some of the classrooms only have 11 or 12 kiddos. So I don't want to paint the picture that it's a pervasive issue. It's just at certain sites, there may be pockets that maybe this 5th grade just, you know, it's a staffing issue. We don't have enough sections to accommodate. The beauty of this is, you know, next week we'll start making those changes, and you know, some parents, given the scorecard of the county that came out this week, we're still in the orange. I've had more parents wanting to go remote. So it's kind of a moving target. Those parents that want to go remote will create an opportunity for those that want to come in person. So, but again, those waiting lists are very few and far between, and Ms. Sharp may speak more in detail to those.
Okay, thank you. Gracias.
Okay, de nada.
Thank you, Dr. Kipp. Any other questions for any of the principals that have joined us tonight? Or I don't see any. So thank you all for your participation tonight and your encouragement of our students and our faculty and staff, and continue to provide great leadership to them. Thank you very much. We don't have any action items or discussion items, and so we'll move along to board member comments. Dr. Bonebrake, at the end, do you have anything to share with us tonight? Would you turn on your microphone, please, so we can?
Our teachers and administrators are doing an amazing job, and I'm just sorry that our superintendent was just one of the top 4. Of course, out of nearly 300 districts, that's pretty amazing accomplishment. So it's always an education coming to these. Thank you.
Dr. Morrison.
Just thank you for the birthday wishes. I look at it as I made 39 again. And I'm still feeling good, and that's the main thing. And I think I have most of my faculties. So, but thank you all. That's right.
Mr. Munoz.
I wanted to again reiterate our appreciation for our custodians. It stuck out to me that Dr. Pizzino once said that this virus will arrive in all sorts of places that we don't think it'll get to, and so custodians and the work that they do really are saving lives, and they are the front line keeping our staff and teachers, and most importantly, our students safe. And so we appreciate all of their work that they put in day and day out. Again, congratulations to those physical therapists and the work that they do in our schools. Certainly very important, as many of us know. And thank you again to teachers. I think as we're learning here about the complexity of making sure that students get the education that they deserve and that they're there, we're getting a better picture of just how hard it is, and we can't communicate enough how the job and the importance that they're doing and the difference that they're making for these students and their families.
Thank you, Mr. Munoz. Mrs. Bolly.
I would just want to repeat that same thank you. I've been in some buildings the last few weeks, and they are beautiful. The custodians are working so hard, and you see all the teachers working so hard. Everybody is just working so hard to address whatever we can at the educational level for our community. I do believe we probably have some parents and even probably staff that may have some concerns about the climbing scorecard. And so I'm hoping maybe at the next board meeting, we can have some information about what would happen if we end up in red again in our community, and that maybe we can inform our community about what our plans would be looking forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Mrs. Bolly. Ms. Stewart Campbell.
Just a brief comment. As a parent with 2 children in the district, I want to say I see my children are learning despite all of this. I feel confident. I know my children are learning a lot, and I'm just really, really proud of what TPS is doing. And I thank everybody, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Williams.
I too would like to express gratitude toward our custodial staff across the district for the job that they are doing, and I agree with Mr. Munoz, they are saving lives. Also, I took advantage of being off from the district that I work for to visit some of our schools. Monday, I went to Jardine Middle School and Topeka. Wednesday, I went to Stout, and today I went to Avondale West. And one of the things that keeps jumping out at me is the engagement and enthusiasm displayed by our students, in spite of all what's going on and how upsetting this whole COVID has brought in our lives. They seem to really be enthused about being in school and learning. So, and a lot of that has to do with our administration and our staff at all the respective schools. So with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Reverend Williams. Just briefly, a couple follow-ups. Dr. Gray, maybe you can make sure these get taken care of. A bus tutorial, one of our Alyssa, the high school student, thought a bus tutorial would be effective for our students that are riding the bus and not have to walk such great distances to get to and fro, to and back to and from school. So I'm sure Topeka Metro probably could work together and have something done. And I echo Mrs. Bully's request to just look at what could happen, I guess, and make sure we can communicate that clearly going forward. So that would be helpful in the next meeting. In the last 2 weeks, I attended several committee meetings. The District Citizens Advisory Council, I participated in via Zoom. Lively group, a lot of participation. It was a good meeting. Dr. Anderson was there and she answered a whole lot of questions, and I know she and others followed up the next day with many parents just with questions and concerns, and I know that most of those I think were resolved. So I'm appreciative to our responsiveness there, also to the volunteers who serve on that committee. And then the Finance Committee met this week, and I also participated on the Foundation Investment Committee, and they will report. There's essentially 3 funds that the Foundation Investment Committee manages through Clayton Financial Group. There's a Highlander Fund, which supports Highland Park students with scholarships. There's the Hummer Sports Park Fund that supports continuing operations at the Hummer Sports Park. And then there's a smaller fund that kind of supports a lot of grants that the teachers may request. And so they, Clayton Financial and that committee chair will come, and I think in the next month or so, and give a report of the findings or the results that the committee's had. The District Citizens Advisory Council is also looking at subjects for topics for the next meeting, and their proposal, or the next study topic, and their proposal is more mental health. And I think it's appropriate given the conditions we're in, especially students who may not be within schools, that we address that. So that's they're going to be their proposal, I believe. And then finally, just wish Dr. Morrison happy birthday this Saturday. So thank you. With that, we'll adjourn the meeting.